I guess this fight did kind of play out like many of us were feeling. It was close in the end. Zhang's power, while not deciding matters like I was leaning towards, certainly did factor in. Parker looked pretty bad, I thought, in round 3. Zhang taking the first 2 rounds, quite casually just managing to hit him with his jab. And then that straight left just seemed to be a bit of an arm shot, but you heard the crunch. Parker's nose looked like it may have been busted, and he didn't look so confident in that moment. But all credit to himself, and Andy Lee slowly works himself back into the fight. Has to suffer another knockdown in round 8, manages to get it back together again, and I think, probably deserves to get that decision. And here are my 3 main takeaways from that fight. So I'll echo again, Parker deserves a lot of credit for how he has turned his career around since the Joyce loss. I think because of the fact the Joyce loss was quite an ugly one. The guy was, already in his 30s at that point, already had a long career, and that was a draining, drawn-out, physically demanding fight that ended with kind of a wilting knockout. And you think, what's left of Parker here? Well, what's left of him is the best period of his career. So that is a tremendous turnaround. You can just see now the improved concentration levels, the better balance. There were so many times in the past where it was getting frustrating with Parker. He seemed to go to sleep. Was it a lack of conditioning or a lack of a game plan or both? But he'd lose his way in fights. The punches weren't sharp. There was no specific game plan he was sticking to. It was like, and then he'd allow himself to get bullied. It's also much more considered and assertive now. It's not spectacular, but clearly, with these W's coming, it is effective. So a big thumbs up for Joseph Parker, who has to be, of course, the willing pupil and the very good mastermind in his corner, Andy Lee. Now, the second point, and really the big point of the fight, is scoring sometimes can be a bit confusing. Now, the bottom line for me is that Zhang shot himself in the foot by being so inactive. You should know that if you're not throwing punches basically at all, at the last 2 rounds, I don't remember his arms moving, then you're just basically going to give it to the other guy. But then as the fight was coming to a close, and I was thinking to myself, Zhang just hasn't been active enough here to get it. I was also kind of thinking, Parker's not really landing any shots here. It was almost like he was just at the distance where his arms would reach Zhang's guard, who was happy to block. I don't really remember the right hand piercing the guard, getting through. I don't remember seeing Zhang's head getting snapped back. So really, how many scoring punches were there? I doubt the CompuBox will be that accurate. Parker was throwing shots, you heard them connect because they were hitting the arms. People were cheering, willing him on, go on. But then you're also thinking, did they land? If they didn't, is that effective defense? And that's why I threw up that little question there, a little poll. Who wins the round if you have a guy who throws only 2 shots and he lands them, say just 2 little jabs? Or you've got another guy who throws 50, but they're all blocked. Now, most people here went for the first choice because logically that makes sense. But in reality, I bet it's the second one that the judges will score it for. Now, I'm not trying to use this point as fuel to say that Zhang actually won, but it is an interesting little point. It's like, where does the truth lie there? I remember a lot of people saying when it was Lomachenko against Teofimo Lopez, and they were saying in the early rounds, well, Lopez is only hitting arms and gloves. Yeah, but he's also the only one throwing. In most cases, of course, you're going to give it to the guy who's busy, and maybe that's the right thing to do. But there's always that argument, if they're still all being blocked, if they're not scoring punches, then should you get any points? And failing to pierce Zhang's guard with the cross, it kind of echoes that problem Parker's had ever since he stepped up to the world level, which is his lack of top-end power. Life would be so much easier if he was able to get the knees going more often, to convince people to stay back to give him space. And it makes me think that going forward, with Parker now existing as kind of maybe the 4th best heavyweight in the world, how is he ever going to make that bridge? Now, he's never going to fight Fury, we know that. But if he was to fight, say, get a rematch with Joshua, which, let's be said, it's not going to be coveted because everyone remembers the first one being lukewarm. But how does he win that fight? It's going to have to be another difficult game of cat and mouse because he just doesn't seem to have the power to create any breakthrough moments. But in the immediate future, that doesn't seem to matter too much because he is going to be fighting Zhang again, or Zhang, as it's correctly pronounced, in October, I believe. Which is a little bit of a gap now for Parker, who's been so active. And another risk, of course, because of how hard Zhang hits. Maybe he'll get it right this time and splatter him. Nonetheless, they will be making both a lot of money. And because I've now doubted Parker 2 times on the trot and he's won, I've got to leave a little bit of space to say that he can go a little bit further, be that little bit better, and do more than I thought he was capable of. Do leave a comment. I have got some people here who leave some pretty good breakdowns at times, has to be said. Spoons up.